Part 3. Defined Outcome Interim Period Experience. The buffer and cap of a defined outcome are based on the full outcome period. This means the defined outcomes are a function of the index level at the start of the outcome period and its level at the end of the outcome period, when the options expire. Throughout the outcome period, the value of the ETF portfolio is determined by the value of the underlying option contracts. As mentioned earlier, the price or value of an option is derived in large part from the price of the reference asset. But an option's value is also a function of the volatility of the reference asset, interest rates, the option's strike price, and its time to expiration. As such, changes in volatility, in interest rates, and in time to expiration can cause the price of an option to move differently from the price of the reference asset. The initial defined outcome cap and buffer levels are based on the NAV of the ETF at the beginning of the outcome period. Once the outcome period is underway, the ETF's NAV will move in accordance with the underlying options price, which means the price paid for the ETF determines the remaining defined outcome. For example, consider a hypothetical S&P 500 defined outcome ETF with a 15% buffer and a 15% cap based on an NAV of $100. With a 15% cap and a 15% buffer, the cap price level is $115, and the buffer price level is $85 for an investor who buys the ETF at $100. Suppose that after some period of time, the price of the ETF has fallen to $97. The cap and buffer price levels are still $115 and $85, but since the price of the ETF has changed, based on the ETF's current price of $97, the cap price level of $115 is now 18.6% away, while the distance to the buffer price level of $85 has reduced to 12.4%. Similarly, if the price of the ETF rises to $103, the cap and buffer percentages would change accordingly. Based on the ETF's current price range of $103, the cap price level of $115 is now 11.7% away. In this instance, while the buffer price level is $85, the ETF would need to incur a 2.5% loss, falling from $103 to $100 before entering the buffer zone. Keep in mind that if an ETF is already trading at or near its investment cap, an investor purchasing at that price will have little or no ability to achieve gains. Similarly, if the fund has decreased in value beyond the predetermined buffer, or the reference asset returns are already down past the buffer zone, an investor purchasing shares at that price may not benefit from the buffer. It's important to keep in mind in the previous examples that during the interim period, the ETF return can, and often will, differ from the return of the reference asset. In assessing an ETF's remaining cap and buffer, remember to distinguish between the reset-to-date return of the ETF and the reset-to-date return of the reference asset. For investment periods shorter than the full outcome period, a change in the price of the reference asset will rarely result in a one-to-one change in the price of the fund. If the reference asset is down during the middle of a period, the ETF will also likely be down, albeit less than the reference asset. As the end of the outcome period approaches, and time value becomes less of a factor, the ETF will begin to realize its buffer. Alternatively, if the reference asset is up during the interim period, the ETF will also likely be up, albeit less than the reference asset. As the end of the outcome period approaches, the return of the ETF will begin to align more closely with the reference asset return, until it reaches its cap. The defined outcome series funds have characteristics unlike many other traditional investment products, and may not be suitable for all investors. For more information regarding whether an investment in the fund is right for you, please see Investor Suitability in the prospectus. There is no guarantee the fund will achieve its investment objective. The fund's investment objectives, risks, charges, and expenses should be considered carefully before investing. The prospectus contains this and other important information, and it may be obtained at innovatoretfs.com. Read it carefully before investing.